Smitty, back with another one, man. And today I am joined by a special guest, activist, advocate, and change maker, Alona Scott. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and hello, everyone. I know I'm pretty honored to be here, especially with everything that you're doing with your podcast. So like I said, it's truly an honor to be here with you.
All right. And before we get started, where can people find you on social media, anywhere else, like LinkedIn, anything like that?
Yes, so I definitely can be found on LinkedIn. I just actually finished updating my profile, and that can be found under Alona Scott, as well as my personal Instagram, which is at I'm Lana Scott. So those are my two accounts that you can kind of contact me.
And true to what we was doing here earlier, right? So on your LinkedIn, are you the same person on LinkedIn as you are in real life, or is that?
So I think that's the beauty of social media in this age. So on my LinkedIn, I'm very professional. I think that comes where you can be versatile. So my personal account, that's me. I'm adventurous. I like to have fun, go on to different adventures. But on LinkedIn, you see the more professional and what I'm aligned to do.
The safe for work side?
Yeah, safe for work.
Got you. Yeah. All right. So getting straight into it, you are currently a justice advisor for Connecticut Justice Alliance.
Yes.
For anyone who is not familiar with Connecticut Justice Alliance, what is it that they do? How can someone be involved? And what got you into that space?
Okay, so basically what the Connecticut Justice Alliance is, we actually just changed our name too. So it was formerly the Connecticut Juvenile Justice Alliance, and that was because we kind of cater our work to advocating ending the criminalization of youth. But we thought like the name juvenile is kind of really incriminating. So we wanted to be extremely intentional with the language. So that's our new name, which we're very proud of. We got a lot of positive feedback for that. But for someone who would want to join, a lot of the positions, such as myself, which is a justice advisor, those are all contracted positions. So as of now, we are actually looking for new team members. So if you visit the Justice Alliance, Instagram, you can find the link where you can go on their website. You can see our Invest in Me campaign and everything like that. And if you're interested in our work, you definitely can sign up to be a part of it. So, yeah.
Okay. And then for the title justice advisor, all right. So for me, like on the outside looking in, I hear justice advisor, I'm thinking like you're like a lawyer, like is it something to that extent?
So I would say it's more so an advocacy role. So like we sit in meetings with different legislators and senators and kind of advocate on behalf of the voices of young people. So a lot of times when policymakers are making decisions for youth and, different kinds of people, they don't have the people who they directly affect sitting at those meetings.
That's a fact.
Yes. So that's something that I think is extremely important. So we are those young people who sit at the table and basically give our opinions and insights onto real lived and life experience on these matters, which is pretty cool, believe it or not.
Okay. Dope. And for anyone who's like, I'm not big into politics or I don't do politics or anything like that, what would you say to someone who's kind of like, I don't want to get my hands involved in politics? What would you say to that person?
So what I would say is, even we have some people on our team who they're very passionate about, the things ending the criminalization of youth, but they're not public speakers, or they get frightened writing testimonies and things like that. So I'm very thankful that I work with a team, and especially leadership, who meet people where they're at. So say, for example, public speaking is not my forte. I get nervous. I'm like, oh.
You doing good so far.
Thank you. But my supervisors basically will meet you where they're at, like I said. And if you don't feel comfortable with this, they'll kind of like push you to kind of get out of that comfort zone so you can grow a little bit. But they'll also work with you and give you the tools that are needed for you to feel like you're successful in the work that we do.
Got you. And as far as some of the things that you guys have been doing in the community, I saw that recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, that there was a bill raised to raise the age that a child can be arrested, or something to that effect.
So it was the HB bill. I think it's 6919. If I'm remembering correctly. Yes. So that was the JJPOC bill. And one of the different parts of that bill was we were advocating to raise the minimum age of arrest in Connecticut. So what that means is, this kind of blew my mind. In Connecticut, a young person as far as 7 years old, I want to say, can be arrested. Yes.
And have a record and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So we were kind of advocating to, raise that age a little bit more to be 12. So they were kind of a little flexible with us, but they didn't raise it to 12, more so 10. So I think going back next year in our legislative sessions, one of our main priorities is kind of to up that age because,
Yeah.
getting a young person involved with the legal system, that can be a very traumatic experience in itself and can kind of introduce them to, that behavior of then repeating
Yeah.
itself. So it's like, you want to give these kids an opportunity for success without hindering them and allowing them to learn from their mistakes without being so much punitive, so to speak. So, yeah.
And I could imagine me being transparent. I did a lot of dumb
Yes,
things when
me
I was a
too.
kid. A lot of things I wouldn't tell nobody or like I would regret. And like to think that as young as 7, that's what, like second grade?
Yes. So I
You
have
can
a
you can be
young brother.
arrested?
My brother is 7, and I'm just thinking, like, he does silly things all the time. They're
Yeah.
young. They don't know better yet. So that just blew my mind.
That's beyond me that that's even a thing. And a lot of
That is the
people
thing.
who are gonna listen to this that may be like they may have never known that at 7 years old you can be arrested, have a record, be in a system, and like now you're like a number, a statistic, and like there's data
Yeah.
on you. Like
Yeah.
it gets very deep. So I'm proud of you guys for doing that. I didn't even
Thank
know that
you.
that was a thing, and definitely get that number to 12, man, at
Yeah.
least because that prison pipeline is very real.
It is real. It is real. And I think another one of our main priorities was we kind of were talking about the removal of SROs in schools. So student resource officers or even just police in the schools.
I was gonna ask you about that too.
And I'm very transparent. So, like I previously mentioned, I had a father who was incarcerated. So, seeing policemen automatically triggered me. And especially being in the school environment, that's supposed to be a safe space. You want to be there to learn, get out, do what you need to do. And having those officers in those spaces can be really triggering for a lot of brown and, people of color. So, that's
This is
something
very
that's
true.
intense. Yeah. But a lot of the pushback that we received from them is that, parents say they make them feel safe. Being an officer in the school, people are less inclined to, kind of act out or like bring weapons to school and things like that. But in all actuality, data says no,
No,
ma'am.
not
No,
at all.
ma'am. Yeah.
Not at all. And I remember, like, for me, I went to Central High School here in Bridgeport, and I always thought that the experience I had, everyone had in high school. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized people didn't. Like, I would come into school. The first thing we do is open our backpacks, show us in our backpack. They go through it. We hand them the backpack. We walk through a metal detector, show our school ID. They give us the backpack back, and then we go to class. And the whole time there's like 5 security guards there. And then there's a school police officer, like maybe like 20 feet away. And to us, that was normal. And I thought everybody did that.
No.
Until I got older and I'm like, wait, you didn't have a cop at your school?
Yeah.
You didn't have metal detectors? You didn't have to, like, you could just walk in and out? It was that easy?
Yeah, and that's another problem. So a lot of those heightened securities are in urban schools. So you're kind of already criminalizing those students before they don't have behaviors. They're just going to school, things as simple like that. But even in, like you said, you went to Central High School. In Fairfield, they don't have, you go to school with metal detectors and different things like
Yeah.
that. So it's totally different experiences for different people based off of where you live. And that's really unfortunate.
So if you could suggest an alternative, like, instead of having, was it student resource officers
Yeah.
in schools, do you think just a level of just having regular security guards would be good, or just different measures should be in place other than just having a resource officer?
So I say different measures, and more so because even in like a lot of the vision sessions that we talked with the SROs, we asked them, if you can be replaced with anybody, who would you be replaced with? And a lot of them said mentors.
That's a good question.
So, just people who can help them build those connections. But I more so would say counselors. I'm very open. A lot of those kids have problems that are deeply rooted and they lash out or have these behaviors as a result of these problems. Some people, they go home, they may not have food to eat or a bed to sleep in. And,
Yeah.
sometimes they may just need that one person to talk to. And I definitely think that if you would bring in more counselors, especially in urban schools where they don't have them, it could do great justice for these kids.
And that's a big thing too, that counseling piece, because now that I think about it, and this interview is really making me think about my own experience, but like, I could name my security guards, but I could not tell you the name of the social worker at my high school.
And that's, yeah. So even, okay, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but even in
That's
school,
fine.
we
Go
did
ahead.
like a pilot program, and I did my project on the removal of SROs. And the school of choice, I did it based off of the demographics of Central.
Oh,
And what they
man.
said, there was, I want to believe there was like 5 security officers, and there was only 3 counselors. So you like,
You're
come
already
on.
telling me what's more important.
Yeah.
Off of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, man. Okay. Yeah.
So you rather keep their behaviors in check versus like allowing them the opportunity to actually talk about the things that they're going through and that what may lead to it. So it's unfortunate.
And this is something, as we have this conversation, and I'm really enjoying it, this is something that we may need to revisit and like bring a lot of other, like bring in like 2 other people and have like this round table type discussion about
I'm down
this.
for
This,
it.
I like where this is going, man. And I'm with you that there should just be different measures in place. I think people are very quick to address the behavior
And not the source.
and not the source. Like there's a reason that this child is doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we have to get to the root of that reason and not just, okay, he did something bad, I'm going to punish them for doing
Yes.
something bad. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways we could go about that. Even now where I work, I work with kids and they go through now it's like a summer program, but then when school's in session, it's like an after school program.
Okay.
And we do everything we can to not remove a student, to not suspend them, to not kick them out. We refer them to, it's at LifeBridge Community Services here
Yeah,
in
I've heard of
Bridgeport.
it. Yeah.
And they have behavioral health services on the other side of the building and mental health services and all of that. So instead of removing a child and kicking them out of the program, we refer them and get them help and hook them up with a counselor and go that route. And then they can come back once they've shown that they've done that work to get better.
Yeah.
And that route is so much more effective for the kids. And I've seen where it works for the kids instead of just, oh, you're expelled, you're suspended, you're kicked out. And then they have nothing to look forward to, nothing to enjoy.
And you never know. So some kids, that might be the one thing that's keeping them together. So you kick them out and they're like, well, what's wrong with me? You know, well, they can't accept me here. So, you know, I might as well do whatever, you know.
And they start feeling like I'm not good enough to be anywhere. Like I'm not good
Self-esteem.
enough to be in school. I'm not good enough to be in a program. And then it's downhill.
Like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now transitioning off of that, not just only being a justice advisor for Connecticut Justice Alliance, but you are also the vice president of Triumph Talk.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about Triumph Talk and what that is? Because it's a very powerful thing I'm seeing.
Thank you. So Triumph Talk is actually basically an organization. A friend of mine, Talia, she actually created this organization to help women overcome traumatic experiences. So what we do is we're basically a platform where we also amplify women's voices and their traumatic experiences and how they basically overcome those experiences. And what we found is by, you know, allowing these women to have a platform and sharing their experiences, it also creates great conversation. You know, a lot of people, you know, when they go through traumatic experiences, they're like, well, I'm the only one that this happened to, or why me?
Yeah.
So it kind of allows them to connect with another person and see how they, you know, were able to turn their pain into power in a sense.
Pain into power. I like the phrasing of that. I definitely like that. So now, exploring the page and just looking at all the content you also have your own personal story up there that you spoke about.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit? I know you mentioned a couple things in there that stood out to me. One of them was having an inconsistent parent.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I know you talked about the aspect of how it affects you with like police officers and things like that, but just having a parent who's not physically there, how does that affect you?
Okay, so like I said before, I'm very open, transparent, and honest. So my father was incarcerated for a majority of my life. And when he would come back, it was like, I'm back, I'm going to do right. So you kind of have that little sense of hope. And then it's like, okay, you're right back there. So it's kind of like a cycle. And what I noticed with me, I kind of internalized those feelings. So it kind of made me feel like, well, is something wrong with me that, you know, he can't stay? Like, is it me? Or, you know, it kind of plays a major toll on your emotions. And when I was going through a lot of these emotions, my mom, I have a really great mom, thank God. But she really didn't know how to connect me with those resources. So for a long time, I found myself internalizing those feelings, like I said, and in that I was depressed for a while, and no one noticed, you know. So with that came, I remember one day I was just like, I had enough. You know, like I realized I'm in control of my future, and I'm no longer going to allow my sadness to kind of overtake me.
Yeah.
So I made it my point to become the person that I desperately needed when I was younger. And that's something that like really, really drives me. That's why I do everything that I do. You know, if I could just reach one person, if I could just help one person, you know, you never know what that could do for someone.
Yeah, you never do. Have you had that experience where you've been able to see where you've reached a person and helped a person? Have you had that moment yet?
Yes, I have. So there was a young boy, and when I was working in residential, he was going through a lot. And he started to like pick up my behaviors, or like I'd use words of affirmation. So like at the beginning of our meeting, you saw my phone kind of went off.
Yeah.
And it was one of my affirmation. And for 3:00, that affirmation is no weapon formed against me shall prosper. So like every hour I have these different affirmations going off. And he used to be like, Miss Alona, well, what's that? And he was intrigued. And then at bedtime one day, I remember he was like, Miss, can you teach me how to pray? You said praying really helped you. Can you teach me? And that moment, I was just like, oh my goodness, my heart. You know, I was trying to like, don't cry, girl, don't cry. Like, don't let this little boy see you cry. But, you know, just reaching him and like, you know, just seeing over time, there was times where he used to curse me out. And I used to be like, you know, it's I get it. Like, you're going through a lot. You don't have an outlet. And I was patient with him. And I would just work with him. And then at the end of the program, so he was transitioning to somewhere else, he wrote me a letter. And he was just like, thank you for all that you did. I know sometimes you may feel like what you were doing was stupid, but thank you for being the person that stuck with me.
Man.
And for me, it was just like, oh, like my heart. And that's why I do what I do. The thing about me is I'm very genuine. I'm a people person, and I love to make people feel good and happy. And if there's anything that I can ever do for people, I'm doing it. I'm always been like that. So.
And how old was this young boy?
He was 11.
11. And for him to like be able to understand that and articulate that and say like, thank you for being the person that stuck with me. Like, it just lets you know how much that younger kids really understand and feel these emotions, and that we shouldn't really like downplay anything that they feel.
Yeah.
Because in that little critical time in his life, that difference that you made, he'll probably remember that for the rest of his life.
Yes.
And it'll probably really shape him.
Yes, his picture sits on my desk at home. I'm like, oh, like, you know, hey.
And you have people that work, that you work with that like do stuff like that for you, man. I had a moment, I had left the job in April, and a lot of the people that I worked with, they all live in Bridgeport and are in the community. So like literally everywhere I go, I run into somebody. And I went to the diner, me and one of my friends, and I walk in and there's 2 clients that I used to work with. Yes. Yeah. And they're like, they haven't seen me since like April. This is like 2 weeks ago I went, and they're like, I could hear them, and we made eye contact, and I'm like, dang, okay, they saw me. Dang, I can't run now.
Yeah, but I know for my jobs, they used to be like, well, you can't approach them unless they approach you. So it's like, I see you, I know you see me.
And then I could hear them, and they're like, is that Jordan? I'm like, hi, that's Jordan. So I'm like, I say hi to them, and I talk to them, and then I go sit down, and I'm eating, and then they come over and talk again. They leave, and then they come. Aww. And one of them was like, she was like, you know, Jordan, when you first started working with me at the program that we were at, she was like, you know, I was nervous and it was hard for me, and I didn't know how things were going to go, and you told me to just, you know, stay patient and things will work themselves out and it's going to be okay. And she was like, you know, things are really getting better for me, and I remember you saying that, and that means a lot to me. And all of that. I'm like, man, this, like, the things we say and like the impact we have on people is real, and you don't always know how much you're really like impacting somebody. So
because even like from that experience, I remember there was days I used to sit in my car and was like, is it effective? Like,
doesn't mean anything.
Does it mean anything? And it was like, you know, sometimes, you know, just keep pushing, and you know, the end turnout is definitely something that drives me. It's nice, you know. It's nice.
And it's definitely moments like that in this helping professions that we find ourselves in, where it's like, is this even working? Like,
good God.
Do I want to be here anymore? Like, I ain't signed up for this.
Yes.
Like,
yes. Especially being cursed out part.
Yo, I remember I was working at a a boys group home in Danbury. And my first day was cool, you know, transitioning, blah, 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 blah. And this was working 6 to 2. So I'm in Bridgeport and I got to get to Danbury by 6
that's
a.m.
like
Yeah,
40 minutes.
it was a lot. But my second day, there was this kid who was coming back, and I guess he was like the problematic person there. And the reason he was coming back, he had gone AWOL from the program. So he left.
He a runner. He a track star.
Yo,
I'm sorry.
sprinter, like Usain Bolt. So he ran, called a taxi, took a taxi all the way to Enfield, because I guess that's where his family's from. Took a taxi to Enfield, got out the taxi, skipped out on him, didn't pay him, owed him mad bread, and just took off. And then somehow he got reconnected with his family, and then they brought him back. And he comes back, and he's cool for a little while. We outside. I'm trying to get to know him. He's playing basketball, shooting hoops. And then we go inside, and first thing he says is, "I'm not staying here no more. I'm leaving." And took off. And now I'm running around Danbury trying to find this kid, and I'm like, nah, I don't know if this is for me. It'd be some of those moments where you're like, dang, I don't know about this. But it ended up being a situation where we were finally able to like get through to him and bring him back in and reel him back in, and like he started to make progress by the time I eventually left there. But people just need consistency in their lives.
Yes.
They really need that, and like that solid support behind them. So I'm glad that you were able to be that for somebody, and I know that you're still that for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another thing that you said in that clip that you put on the Triumph Talk site, the Instagram page, you talked about Psalms 35.
Yes.
Where it says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning." Can you speak about what that means to you?
Yes, that's my favorite quote of all time, especially because, like I said, when I was going through that depressive phase, you know, I used to tell myself, you may cry right now, but in the morning, it's a new day. You know, it's a new opportunity to turn whatever you're going through around. So, like I said, don't allow yourself to wallow in the sadness, but to know that no pain lasts forever, essentially. So, yes, you may be hurting right now. Yes, it may not feel good. You know, that's a part of feeling through your emotions.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the tunnel, there's light. So that's what that quote means to me, and it's something that deeply resonates with my spirit.
So I'm going to ask you this too.
Yeah.
Do you feel like not just, you know, putting your own works and effort into it and all those things like that, but do you feel like your spirituality, your faith plays a huge part in how you feel, how you overcome things? How big is that for you?
It's major. It's major because I noticed when I'm out of alignment with the will of God, that's when my anxiety will start. That's when like I'll start to overthink. You know, depression will settle in, and like the power of prayer is really strong for me. So like whenever I'm going through something, I will cast all my burdens at His feet. Like the shower, my mother, everyone in my house knows I take hour showers, and when I'm in the shower, I sing, I pray. Like that's just my safe space. So I definitely do think spirituality plays a key part and like all of those emotions and getting through things, because I remember when I was at my lowest, and like I said, those feelings don't feel so good, and I would just cry and cry, but I would pray and I would pray and I would pray, and over time I slowly felt like my endurance building up again. And like, you know, I would come from a place where you didn't want to get out of bed, you didn't want to eat, to okay, I can do this. You know, like I got this. And even a major part of that is fasting for me. So like when I'm all out of whack, or I just feel like I need to be more in tune, I will fast. And something I do pretty frequently, too. So, like, starving my body. I remember my first day of fasting, so you're not supposed to tell nobody. They made this huge dinner, and I was so sad. But I'm like, you know, it builds that discipline. And that's also something that I'm trying to get better with, is my discipline. So,
discipline is huge.
Spiritual, you know, that really plays a major part in all of that. Yeah.
So you said you noticed that when you're outside of the will of God, you know, and shifting this a little bit, if you can answer this, because I think this, if your answer to this can help a lot of people, how do you know when you're in the will of God?
Anything, my mom says this to me, anything that comes with confusion means that you're outside of the will of God. So sometimes when I find myself in situations, or like I will notice my thoughts, because I'm a thinker. I analyze everything. I'm extremely observant. You know, it's a blessing and it's a curse, but you know, when that confusion sets in, or like, well, did this happen? Did you know, what about that? Like, but then I notice when I'm in the will of God, it's peace that surpasses all understanding. So all those thoughts, it's literally like cricket, cricket, cricket.
Yeah, silence.
It's peaceful. And when you're outside of the will of God, that's when all that emotional turmoil sets in. And like I said, the confusion and everything. So for me personally, that's how I know.
Dope. I love that answer, and I know I just feel it.
Yeah.
Somebody is really gonna benefit from that answer.
I hope so.
Because that's walking with God is one of the most challenging things, because it's not like you're always gonna have that quick response back.
Yes, and yes.
And we really, like, I know I crave that sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to know. I just want an answer. I just want to know I'm doing the right thing. Am I going the right way? But it's sometimes the most uncomfortable place to be is in the will of God, but it's always the best place to be.
Yeah, and even I know with me, like you said, sometimes you crave that tangible touch, or just a word, and I'm good for, Lord, hello, like, where you at? But even sometimes I'm like, okay, just give it to me on Twitter. If I'm scrolling down my feed, if confirmation that you hear me or something like that, just little things. And for me, sometimes, I'll just be scrolling. Sometimes, I give the Lord a timeline. I'm like, God, can you do this by 7 o'clock? And literally, he always comes through.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
even if it's 6:59.
That's why I call him the 11th hour God, because he always comes in at the 11th hour and makes everything okay. So, yeah.
Man, all right. So, the third thing that I wanted to get into from that video, you mentioned, and we talked about it before we started the interview. There's a quote that you said. You said, "What you allow is what will continue." Yes. And that really stood out to me, because I'm a big person on, like, setting boundaries, and that's something I had to learn even in relationships. It's like, okay, this behavior is gonna continue. Like, I'm gonna keep seeing this result until I draw that line in the sand and I don't allow it. So how has that process been for you, learning to set that boundary, learning, not even just learning, but being able to say, I'm not going to allow this anymore? What has that process been like for you?
Okay, so being transparent again, I have my own therapist. And this is something that I had to work with her on, because, like I said, I'm a people person. I like everyone that's in my life. I go above and beyond for people, because I want them to feel loved. I want like you have somebody to talk to if you need it.
Yeah.
So for me, doing that a lot of those boundaries were blurred. So people would take. And because I'm a giver, I naturally just give. So I had to implement those boundaries in platonic, friendships and even romantic relationships, because I think self-worth also plays a major part in that too.
Definitely.
And what I mean by that is, when you don't know your worth, you will allow people to mistreat you. You'll allow them to disrespect you, just basically do whatever they want, and they think that they can get away with that. So when I say what you allow will continue is basically until you had enough, until you set those boundaries and implement them and stand on your word, then that's when people will stop, mistreating you. And you have to be strong in those boundaries, because if not, people, a lot of people are opportunists. They'll do what they can to you, to get what they want. So.
And a lot of people, that opportunistic mindset, that way they go about things is just natural to them. Yeah. And they may not even see that they're doing something wrong. Yeah. It's just what they do. And I'm big on, not just what you allow is what will continue, but also if you don't define what something is, you allow that other person to define what it is for you. And I think that that's huge. So for a lot of people, even myself, and you say yourself included, setting boundaries is something that takes work.
It does.
Yeah.
Because especially when you don't have those boundaries and people are used to doing whatever, as soon as you implement those boundaries, they're like, what, man? Like 2 weeks ago, you didn't let me do this. But, it's hard. And sometimes you're like, well, I know for myself, I wanted to give in a little bit, but I had to understand, no, I did implemented this boundary because it did this to me. Yeah. So it's kind of standing firm in that boundary and those beliefs. Yeah.
And the hard part for me with setting boundaries was that I don't like for people to be upset with me.
Me either. It makes me uneasy.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to be okay with that.
I feel really uneasy when people are upset with me. And then it's like, okay, well, if I set this boundary, I'm protecting my emotions and I'm doing the right thing, but then they're going to feel a way about it. And I don't want somebody to feel a way about something I did, regardless 100%. Of the reason. And that's hard for me, man.
Me too. It's all a learning game. And I had to understand, it's not I have to protect myself,
Yeah.
So I understand that you may be upset with my decision, but I have to protect myself at the end of the day. And I have this boundary for a specific reason. And hopefully you can understand what the reason is, But if not, then I'm sorry. Like,
So now I'll ask you this question: as far as setting boundaries, because people set boundaries in like romantic relationships and things like that, but setting boundaries in friendships, is that something that you've encountered and had to do? Because I feel like it's not that it's easy to set a boundary, because it's definitely difficult, but a lot of times people find themselves in friendships where it's like, I don't want to set that boundary with my friend because we've been friends for so long and 10 plus
yeah.
years, and it's like, how do I tell them to not be them, or how will they take it, or will this affect the friendship? So is that something in friendships that you found yourself having to do before?
So I'm going to say this. My best friend, she's very good at setting boundaries. So she is actually one of those people who kind of, I didn't have any boundaries. So she kind of taught me, hey, so like specifically, I know unless it's emergency, don't call that girl after 10 o'clock, because she works early morning and that's her personal boundary. She knows like, hey, I have to get up at work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So please don't call me unless it's 911.
Yeah.
But, that's a boundary that she set. And then, I started to learn my own boundaries. Like so I had friends who used to kind of say slick comments in a joking manner.
Yeah.
So like those are things that I had to learn how to check. So like, if you can't stop doing this, then I can no longer be your friend, because, it doesn't align with my sense of self-worth. And sometimes that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So I've walked away from friendships, 10 years plus because of things like that. And, you implementing those boundaries and people around you not understanding them. So, but I'm grateful that I'm in a place where, although I parted ways with some friends, for implementing boundaries, it's in a sane manner. It's not any jealousy. It's not any hate.
Yeah.
I still want to see you do well, but right now you can't sit at the table with me. But I wish you the utmost best. And I think that's how a lot of people have to learn, because when you part ways, every end of a relationship, whether that's romantic or whether it's a friendship, it doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes, God, we begin God, but you just have to part ways. Where he's taking you may not align with what their goal is or what he has aligned for them. So you have to learn how to part ways and just be okay with, losing some people along the way. And that's as easy as
And
I
that's
can say
hard
it. Yeah.
because a lot of people struggle with loss. So it's like, dang, I don't want
What?
to lose anybody else.
Losing a friend, I would say that's more than I will hurt me more than romantic relationships.
Yeah,
Like
honestly.
I used to always say, guys come and go, but you're my friend. Like, I hold you to a higher standard. So it's I can definitely understand it being difficult.
That's major for a lot of people, man. And a lot of people that's a hard step to take.
It is.
I've had moments where I've had to like just separate myself from certain people or certain friends. And like you said, it's not that I wish you any negativity or anything like that. I want the best for you.
Yeah.
But the season I'm in and where I'm at right now, you can't necessarily be a part of that season for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to have that real conversation with people.
Yeah.
That's big. All right. Okay. So let me see before we transition. Okay. Oh, bang, right here. Okay. Finding positive coping skills is something that you mentioned in there.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, we have a lot of negative coping skills.
Yes.
And you can go on social media any day of the week and see a lot of negative coping skills, whether it's smoking, drinking, people being promiscuous, people just like hiding in a house all day, every day, like don't leave, don't go nowhere, don't talk to nobody. So what are some positive coping skills that could be an alternative for some people who find themselves kind of like just masking what they go through?
Okay. I'm gonna start off by what you touched bases on. So the sexual promiscuity or the drinking or the smoking. I feel like a lot of times, because it's exemplified in the media, because you see your favorite rapper is doing it, that it's okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's the lack of having someone to talk to, or like you said, those positive coping mechanisms to kind of help you navigate through those challenges. So just speaking off my own personal experiences, I remember like when I was going through that really trying time again, and I was trying to figure out, well, what works best for me? What's going to bring me peace? And one of the things that I've absolutely found that I loved was hiking. Okay. So I'm a Black girl, and I don't know about you, but we don't really do this. But hiking. So I had a friend at the time, and we had this entire pamphlet of all of the different hiking spots and waterfalls in the state of Connecticut. And we would flip through the book and like pick a random site. And
And then
that's where
just
we were
go.
going for the day. You know, we were in some really racist towns, and then we were in some really beautiful sites and stuff. But through doing that, I learned, you know, nature brings me peace. And that's a really positive coping skill for myself. For some other people, I've learned that music. So listening to music, going for a walk, exercising, cooking, you know, you have to be in tune with what you like, because what may work best for me not
Yeah, it
always
may
may
not work
work for
best.
you.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely knowing yourself and finding those things that you find joy in, and just taking the time to kind of utilize those activities during trying times to kind of help you get through it. So yeah.
I think that's definitely important. Because a lot of people, you know, they just go to what's easy.
Yeah.
And like you said, what's exemplified in immediate, you know, if I'm listening to music and I'm listening to Future and he's like, Future, Future might not be the right person. You know, he's sipping lean and popping pills to make the pain go away. And it's like,
different girlfriend every day of the week.
he's got a lot of baby mamas, man. I don't know. But, but that, you know, is easy because that may be what people connect to, but it may not, it's easy, but it's not effective.
No, it's self-destructive.
You hit the nail on the head. And it makes whatever you're going through worse, because now you're ignoring it, you're not dealing with it, you're acting like it doesn't exist. And even though you feel like it doesn't exist, it's over there in the corner hiding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, eventually you're going to have to deal with it. It's going to come up. And, you know, it's either going to come up in a relationship or some other avenue. It's going to come up and you're going to have to deal with it. So you can't run from the work. A lot of people try and
they try, but you know, I think like you said, you have to take it head on.
Yeah.
Because if not, it manifests in other areas of your life. So
and it's gonna come out. It's gonna do it.
It sure does.
So transitioning from that, you are in grad school.
Yes, I am.
Going to get your MSW.
Yes, at UConn.
UConn, okay, gang. You feel me? So what is it like balancing life in school? You know, being vice president of Triumph Talk, justice advisor at the Justice Alliance, being a student, and all the other things that you balance and keep in the air. What is it like balancing life in school?
I'm gonna put it in one word. It's difficult. It's difficult. So like you said, I'm part of a couple of different organizations, but I'm also a part of organizations at the school. So I'm a part of like the graduate students of color, and different things like that. So it's very hard to juggle those different things. So what helps me the most, oh my goodness, it's a lifesaver, is to-do lists and calendars. So especially like the first time of the semester, I'm writing down due dates. And these are all techniques that my best friend taught me how to do, because I'm not the most organized person.
Yeah.
I'm going to just be honest.
Be honest.
So like, you know, writing everything down and making sure that, because I'm a giver, sometimes I notice that I overextend myself. So even though I have all this stuff on my plate, say if you needed my help, I'll be like, yeah, I'll try to make you work. I'll try to fit it all in.
Yeah.
But I know that can overexerting yourself can kind of lead to burnout. So I've learned how to like utilize my calendars and to-do lists, but also check in with myself to make sure, hey, am I in the right mental capacity to take on whatever I'm trying to do? So making sure that I'm not burning myself out, and also dedicating time, specific homework days or Sundays are my self-care days. I know on Sunday I'm not doing anything work-related. I'm not doing anything school-related. That's my me day. And, you know, during the semester, it's hard, especially with internships coming up too. But
that's a big piece of that.
It's hard, but it's doable. And again, I feel like my prayer gets me through everything. So, you know, sometimes I cry myself to sleep because it's hard.
It could be overwhelming.
It's what? Underwhelming? That's it. Yeah, it is. But, you know, praying and just, you know, utilizing those calendars and all those different avenues definitely is something that really helps me get through it. It's not easy, but I think for me personally, I've always been the kind of person to focus on the end goal. So no matter as I'm on the journey, you know, yes, you're going to have a couple bumps in the road, but remember what you're doing this for. So that's something that definitely helps me.
And I like to tell people too, like time management is the hardest part of grad school.
Yeah.
Because like you already understand how to be a student and do work and write a paper and all those things, but balancing that time, especially being heavy in this adult world and doing different things and having different things you're a part of, that time management is like the hardest part of grad school.
I agree.
And you mentioned something. You said Sundays are your day for self-care, right?
Yeah.
Self-care Sundays. You watch Insecure?
I used to.
Is that
Yeah.
okay? Because I heard self-care Sundays and my mind immediately went to Insecure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Team Lawrence or Team Issa? What side you on?
Issa.
Everybody on Issa's side. My
Issa.
man Lawrence, dog.
Mm.
I don't know. I need that next season to come out. I was Team Issa for a while, and then I started getting upset, and I was like, man, I'm with
I
Lawrence.
haven't watched it in a minute. Maybe I should rewatch it tonight.
You gotta
That's
go
what
back.
I'm gonna
You
do.
feel me?
Yeah.
See, that's on the list. Go
I'm
back.
gonna
You gotta
rewatch
catch back
it,
up,
yeah.
man. But okay. So another question I wanted to ask, grad school related, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you did your undergrad in psychology.
Yes. Psych. My concentration was mental health. Yeah.
Mm. So what made you transition from getting a degree in psychology to a degree in social work? Did you get the psychology degree always with the end goal in mind? It's gonna be social work, or okay?
Life. So, like I said, I used to be. So as I'm getting older, I'm coming more into myself. I used to be a people pleaser. And I remember my mom really wanted me to, if you're going to go to school and, you're taking on loans and I'm helping you pay for school, let's make something that, you're passionate about, but, also brings in money, So I always knew I wanted to be a social worker. My mom was trying to push me to be a nurse. My mom was trying to push me, okay, you like psychology? Well, why don't you be a psychiatrist? And for a long time, I'm like, okay, that combines all of my interests.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
But it wasn't fulfilling. So I took a risk. And I was like, okay, I can understand that you may be upset with me, but this is something that I want to do. And I have to learn how to live my life for me. And living my life for me makes sure that I'm picking a career that's going to bring me a sense of joy.
Yeah.
So that's how I transitioned to social work. So I always knew I wanted to do it. I was always interested in DCF. I have a couple aunts who used to work at DCF. And I used to be like, oh my goodness, your job sounds so exciting. It's unpredictable every day. And I love that. I don't like things to be predictable.
Yeah.
So I always knew it, but it was all about taking that risk.
Okay.
Life is all about taking risks.
I was definitely wondering that. I'm like, okay, because psychology and social work, like they're similar, but they're not similar at all
not
in
at
the
all.
same way. They're very different from one
Yeah,
another.
but I even feel like a lot of things that I learned in psychology, I use it to help the people that I do see. So it works. It works.
So knowing that social work has always been your thing and like you always wanted to be a social work, what's the ultimate goal in social work? Where do you see yourself working and doing and impacting?
Anything I do in life, I like to go big. So that's just the kind of person that I am. So my end goal is a private practice.
Okay.
So I want a private practice that, helps, individuals, families, and even groups, but also provides them with employment. You have the counseling. We have resources where, if you need a house, the housing, and all those different kind of programs, that's my dream goal. And believe it or not, it aligns with something that my mom wants to do. So my mom has always had a dream of opening a similar organization. So I'm like, okay, well, I could run it,
Yeah.
So hand in hand. But that's my dream goal. Yeah.
Okay. And I see you taking the steps to do it, and I think that it's definitely going to happen for you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be happy to see it happen, man.
Thank you.
So last thing I want to get into is the benefits of therapy, because, like we were mentioning, a lot of people that look like us, we do not go to therapy.
Yeah.
It's like,
especially being spiritual too.
Being spiritual, and then having, like, I know my father's side of the family may not necessarily understand mental health the same way my mother's side would, but even on that side, they may not understand it as much as we would understand it now.
Yeah.
And, I remember even being transparent, even with my brother, and I don't think he would mind me sharing this story, but my brother has ADD. And
I think I do too.
at the time he was diagnosed with ADD, like, it was so different back then.
Yeah.
And the way they saw it was different. And my grandmother blamed my mother for my brother having ADD because she was going through postpartum and felt sad and depressed and all these different things. And like, just knowing that was a mindset people had, that like, yo, you gave your child this because you felt the way, like, and my mom not being so far removed from people thinking like that. And it's like, okay, the way people see mental health has shifted.
Yes, drastically.
Drastically from that standpoint. So, where am I going with this? The benefits of therapy. Okay, bang, bringing it back. So I know that in their time, therapy might not have ever been an option, but now in our time, it is an option. So for anyone who is like skeptical, I don't want to go. I don't want to be seen as crazy. I'm
No,
not about to go talk to
I was gonna say that
some
too.
talk to some person about my problems who don't know me. What would you say to that person?
Okay, so where I was gonna start is the crazy piece, because I remember going through things, and when I was going through those really tough emotions, they would be like, "Stop, you're acting crazy," or "Stop this," you know. I grew up in a very spiritual family, so it was always like, "Pray about it and you'll be okay. Pray about it and you'll be okay." And I've learned that yes, you can pray about it, but the Lord has also equipped people on this earth to help you get through them things. Like,
That's
come
yeah.
on. So, you know, like I said, I'm an advocate for therapy, because when you go in, so I'm going to talk about my therapist a little bit. So, when you go into therapy, the good thing is that you can pick people. You pick your therapist. You know, you can't pick your parents. You can, but you can pick your therapist. And I think psychology today is actually a really great platform that allows you to filter those things and find the person that basically aligns with you. So I have a therapist that looks just like me. I'm black. She's black. I'm 23. I think she's late 20s. So it's like I can relate to her.
Yeah.
And, just kind of feel that person out, So just how you would feel a friend out when you're getting to begin a friendship is like you can see if you guys connect. If you guys don't connect, then, okay, I'm not really feeling it with you, and you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to find it with somebody else. So I would definitely say find someone who fits you, personable like you. But I know it's not always easy getting out of that comfort zone and going to talk
Yeah.
to people, because you can feel like I could just talk about to my friends,
A
and
lot of people do that. They just talk to
yeah.
their friends, and your friends, okay, come in full circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said in that video on the Triumph Talk Instagram page,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned something about friends having the capacity to listen to you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, like you're saying, a lot of people will go to their friends, and their friends don't
You
have
just
that
dump, you just
capacity.
dump, you just dump.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful because my friend's also a social worker. So we're really we're in tune with one another. So before you vent, you ask, "Hey, are you in a good headspace to kind of listen to what I'm going through right now?" Sometimes they might be okay, I can listen to it, but other times they might not be. They might be going through their own things. So if you don't ask these questions, you kind of just unload all your problems on someone else. And you might not think of it, but it's transference. So now they have all of these emotions that they were previously dealing with, and you just added on to their load.
Yeah.
So, making sure they're in the right space to talk to you, you don't want to give them more than they can handle. And although you may feel a little lighter, they might not be.
They're gonna
So,
feel a lot heavier. So that's major.
yeah.
And then bouncing off of that, I remember reaching out to you a while ago because you had a therapy resource guide.
Yes.
And I appreciate you for giving me that.
Thank
and
you.
I'm actually taking the steps finally to like,
Yay!
yeah.
This is a big step. So I applaud you, because this year, as much as I'm in this advocacy stuff, I said to myself too, I'm gonna make this the year that I work on myself. All of those feelings that I've internalized, and getting a therapist, and speaking with somebody. And the great thing about having a therapist is they're totally unbiased. So they basically go off of what you tell them, and that's why I say this all the time. If you're gonna have a therapist, don't just go to them, and if you're gonna lie to yourself, because they'll help you get through your problems. And if you're lying to them, you're really not working on it. You're working around it. So
You're
be
definitely
open.
working around it.
Yeah.
So along with that therapy guide, that being a resource, but you also being a resource yourself.
Yeah.
If anyone else would want that guide or needs help finding a therapist, can they reach out to
Yes,
you?
they
Can you
can.
direct them to somebody?
No hesitation.
Okay.
No hesitation. I'm a very open person. Like, I love to help people get the help that they need. So if I can be that person for someone, I'm all for it. So yes, guys, please feel free to reach out. I gave you my personal Instagram as well as my LinkedIn, and just message me. I don't bite, I promise. So pretty friendly.
Okay. And then the last question I'm going to ask you, and I like to ask everybody this question. What would you tell a younger you that you wish you knew before?
Wow. What would you tell a younger you?
That's the question I get everybody thinking. They be like, oh, man.
Wow. Don't give up.
Okay.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Because I remember there being times that I just wanted to give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Okay. Okay. So that may be what we
That
title
question
this.
hit home. Wow. Okay. Let me see. You got me in my feels real quick. Wow.
Oh man. But I want to say thank you again, Alana, for coming on the show. You know, this was something that I really wanted to make happen, and I'm happy that you wanted to make it happen too.
Yes, I had fun.
It's a fun thing to do. People come in nervous and then they leave like,
Yes,
yo,
I was
this
gonna
was
say,
fun.
you know,
Like,
you saw me, I was like, but leaving here, I definitely feel at peace. This was nice.
definitely,
It was.
definitely. And this won't be the last time you're on the show.
Oh,
We're gonna make something
yeah,
happen.
I'll come back every time you want me to.
But thank you again for being part of the show. Where can people find you again? Your LinkedIn, your Instagram, all that fun stuff.
Yes, they can find me on my LinkedIn at Alona Scott, and then my personal Instagram is at I'm Lana Scott. So, yes, like I said before, please feel free to reach out, whether you need resources, you just want somebody to talk to, you need a friend, you want a hiking partner. I'm open to it all, so don't hesitate to reach out to me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you for listening to the Daily Dimensions podcast, and until next time.